Hey guys, welcome to another GameXplain discussion. I'm your host, Andre Seegers, and this time we're joined by Derek Bittner and Ash Paulson to discuss the news from Nintendo's recent investors meeting. So, let's get started. Alright guys, Nintendo just had their recent investors meeting in Japan, where they talked about some of their upcoming initiatives. And that includes their mobile gaming, or their mobile games, a new account system, and we're going to touch on something else too related to that. But first, let's talk about their mobile gaming, where they actually officially unveiled their first game, if you want to call it that, called Miitomo. And this is interesting because it doesn't really sound so much of a game as like a social media platform, kind of, with some like game-like elements. Basically, it sounds like you play as your Mii and you answer questions, and then your Mii will go like run off and meet up with other Miis, like your friends, and they will like exchange questions and answers that you've all answered respectively. And it sounds like it's Nintendo's way of kind of like pulling you out of your shell, like if you're a little bit shy, or like finding interesting topics for you to engage with your friends that you normally wouldn't ordinarily discuss. Like it wouldn't normally come up in conversation. So this is something like for me personally, I didn't see coming. Like I expected something more game-like. Yeah. So what do you guys think about this? Is it what you expected, and do you think you'll use it personally based on what we've heard of it?
It's not exactly what I expected, but I didn't know what to really expect when it came to smartphone games. I didn't know what direction they would go in, and honestly, considering Nintendo, this makes a lot of sense for them. It utilizes the Miis, which are very well known at this point, thanks to the Wii and Wii U. People just recognize these things are very easy to put together. And honestly, I'm seeing a lot of elements from Tomodachi Life in this cell phone game. I'm not quite sure. I'm not seeing any of the game elements, the more game-like elements from Tomodachi Life, but that might get in here at any rate, just in various aspects, because this is a free-to-play model with options to purchase other things, and I'm assuming that's going to be clothing, or maybe you have a own, like room that you can decorate and stuff. Maybe that's how you do it. But on the most basic sense, this isn't for me. I don't care about that type of thing, but it seems like an interesting enough game that makes it a lot different from whatever else we've seen on other Nintendo platforms. It's something that seems like it would work best on smartphones rather than the 3DS or the Wii U.
Yeah, on the contrary, this is kind of exactly what I expected. I kind of didn't think their first mobile title would be a traditional game. I don't think they want to risk kind of, bringing out their big guns like Mario or Zelda or Pokemon as their first mobile title, just because of the risk involved. This is a new frontier for them. They might screw up their first mobile title. It might not be that fun, and they don't want to tarnish the Mario name, for example, by releasing a mobile title that maybe isn't going to be that great, and maybe it will be.
Okay, well, let's be real here. If Mario Sunshine couldn't tarnish Mario's name, I don't think anything to do on mobile could.
That wasn't that bad. But to me, this is something a little more neutral. It's less gamey and more, app-like. It's more of a social experience, and it seems very Nintendo-esque. It seems like exactly the kind of mobile experience, social experience, I should say, Nintendo would put out on mobile platforms. So it kind of is exactly what I expected. I also see the Tomodachi Life comparisons. And yeah, it's neutral, it's safe, and it kind of makes great use of the Miis, which at this point are almost as culturally recognizable as Mario. So this is what I expected. I think they're playing it safe, and I think it says a lot that they went out and said already that this Miitomo game is going to be their only free-to-play game. The other 4 mobile titles that they're making with DNA are going to be pay to download, which I think is an important distinction that they wanted to make today specifically. So, nothing really surprised me about this. I didn't actually answer your other question, Andre, which is this for me? Not really. I'll probably check it out and mess around with it. I'm not going to buy anything in it for sure, but I'll mess around with it. But no, it's not for me.
Yeah, I mean, so I don't think it's necessarily a bad idea, but like both of you, it's not something I care about at this point, at least. I mean, it reminds me a little bit of, what was that Wii channel where you answered questions? Ask Me or something? Or
Oh, it was the Everybody Votes channel.
That's it.
That's
yeah,
it.
like
Yeah.
a more social version of that.
Yeah.
Which I quickly lost interest in. Like, I was doing it every day out of habit. Like, one day it clicked. I'm like, why am I doing this? I don't like answering these questions.
I actually stuck with it for quite a while. Actually, I think I stuck through it with it for most of its lifespan, just because the questions got more and more inane. They got more and more ridiculous.
I like to think it's just some random guy like locked in a room at NOA, just like coming up with these questions day by day. They won't let them out, and they just become increasingly inane.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the guy in Portal who like writes on the walls.
Yeah.
I think I only used the Everybody Votes channel, I think twice, maybe 3 times, and I was like, no, I'm done.
Yeah. So, so I mean, I agree with you, Ash. Like, it makes sense not for them to go guns blazing with their biggest IPs, from right out of the gate. But I don't think that's what I necessarily expected. I think I just expected something more game-like. So, I mean, I think this is an interesting idea, even if I don't care about it. I do question whether it's the best choice for it being their launch title of their, 5 that they've announced coming to mobile, and presumably many more beyond that, simply because, so many people are already skeptical, specifically, existing Nintendo fans, are already skeptical of Nintendo's foray into mobile gaming. I think a lot of people expected something just more game-like, and this isn't at all a game. Really, as far as I can tell. So I don't know. I mean, it's interesting because it's not a game, and maybe for that reason, they'll get a free pass for it, no matter how it turns out, because it's something that I feel like people can also easily ignore, which I don't know was necessarily a positive thing for Nintendo either.
Well, the funny thing is I didn't get a lot of time to read over the comments, but I did glance a little bit over our update video where we talked about Miitomo being announced and all that, and I was just glancing down the comments. There seemed to be a general amount of excitement for this. Like, people were really into it, or the few that I saw at least. And people were like, yeah, I'm down for this. This looks fun. This looks different. This looks interesting. And maybe it is like Tomodachi Life was sort of a surprise hit. I'm not sure how well that sold overall, but I know a lot of people talked about it and really got into it. So if they can capture that same type of thing with this game, I think there is definitely an audience there. We may not be part of it, but there is definitely some sort of audience there.
Well, and I think that's the key, Derek. We aren't part of that audience, and existing Nintendo fans aren't necessarily part of that audience either. Nintendo's going after a new audience here. It's a new pillar of their business, and I think, Nintendo fans who are their traditional fans, like people who play 3DS and Wii U and whatnot, I think they have to get used to the fact that they're not necessarily the target audience here, and I think that's okay. Nintendo is making a foray into a new business here. They're targeting more casual gamers, and that's okay because the money they make from this venture, there's a huge potential here for money to be made, and that will ideally, I imagine, be kind of put back into their other pillars, their console and handheld pillars. So it's kind of a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation here, because the existing fans aren't happy with them making mobile titles anyway. This is like the worst thing in the world to a lot of people. As dumb as that is, it really is. And so those people aren't going to be happy anyway, because if you make a game for that they might like, it's not going to be good enough because it's for mobile platforms. But if you don't make a game that they like, if it's for a different audience, they're going to be pissed because it looks like something that's just stupid and not for them. So there really isn't a scenario here in which Nintendo can please existing fans with a mobile title.
No, I don't disagree with that. I just still wonder if launching with a more conventional title, per se, something that core gamers would want to play, might have been the wiser decision, and then you introduce your social game app thing.
Not necessarily, because you want to be able to, with your first title, you want to pull in that new audience. The core gamers will come whenever they see a game they'll be interested in.
But wouldn't the inverse also be true? Because people who aren't familiar with, people who aren't core gamers aren't even going to know about the core games already out there, and they could just play the Me app whenever it comes out.
That is true, but I guess that almost makes it a moot point.
Yeah, I mean,
it does. I'm thinking more just in terms of market perception or perception from the fans, which is pretty important. Is just reestablishing that Nintendo, no matter what platform they're on, is going to be making games that appeal to their core demographic. Because right now, that's not the vibe I'm getting. Even though we do know there are more games coming, you see this, and we've all agreed it's something none of us care about.
Yeah, but the thing is, I don't think it's even possible for Nintendo to prove that they can make a game that their core fans even care about. on
Well, if they
mobile.
can't, then they're in trouble.
But I mean, but not because of Nintendo. I don't think it's failing on Nintendo's part. It's the fact that Nintendo's typical kinds of games don't really lend themselves to a touchscreen format, like a Mario game. Or
No, but they can make. I mean, they've discussed before they'd be making new games. Presumably, that's what the other 4 are.
Sure,
Well, it might be a key point that they technically have already announced the title for the more hardcore Nintendo fans, and that would be Pokemon Go. Pokemon Go was announced a while ago, and yes, it's not part of the DNA deal, but it's still Nintendo on a smartphone.
Yeah.
And it's a game that everybody saw and everybody immediately were into. Like, even the hardcore Nintendo fans that were like the traditional consoles, as soon as they saw Pokemon Go, that's something they were excited about. They can't wait to see more of, to see if they can really make that work. And I think with that, they finally got the hardcore in, and now with Miitomo, they have the more casual fan base. So, yeah, it's not part of the DNA deal, but that's still a Nintendo smartphone game. Mm-hmm. So I think that might be, it's clever in a way if they're even thinking about what we're thinking about in this case.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting how Nintendo's been treating the DNA deal as a completely separate thing from the Pokemon Go thing. Like, that's why I think the DNA thing is, it'll provide a better indicator of where they're going than Pokemon Go might, just because Nintendo has been so, like, treating them as completely separate avenues, really, it seems like. I mean, which kind of makes sense, though, because the Pokemon Company has largely always done its own thing, particularly even with mobile gaming. They've already released mobile games. Mm-hmm. So, so Pokemon Go is in kind of a weird, like, gray area between the two. Well, I think that about covers it for Miitomo. I don't know if there's too much more to say about at this point. I mean, I'll check it out. I'm curious about it, but I don't know if I care that much. But now, so something that did seem a little bit more interesting, to core gamers at least, is Nintendo announced the successor to Club Nintendo. Or in fact, they announced a whole account system called, was it Nintendo Account?
It's called Nintendo Account, and then I guess it's actually called My Nintendo, though.
Yeah, My Nintendo is a part of that, which is basically the Club Nintendo replacement. Yeah. And this sounds kind of interesting, because like Club Nintendo, you'll earn points for like buying games, although hopefully it sounds like that'll be a lot more streamlined now than typing in that annoying code every time. But on top of that, you'll even earn points just for playing games. And it sounds like they're tying in the points in a much smarter way, where you'll be able to use those points as rewards basically within the games themselves to buy like digital add-on content, or even original merchandise, and they even mentioned coupons for other games. And then they also mentioned too, you'll be able to use your My Nintendo account at theme park stores and theaters. And I think they also mentioned too, you might even get special discounts on your birthday based on what games you've played. So maybe you might see like, hey, you're a Pokemon fan, it's your birthday, you want to go get Pokemon Blue for cheap or even cheaper? So,
yeah.
I don't know. I mean, this all sounds pretty cool. People were fans of Club Nintendo, and it sounds like a logical extension or successor to what that was.
Yeah, I agree, and I like that Nintendo has already come out and said that they're going to leverage cloud-based data services to, to swap data between mobile, console, and handheld titles. It seems like they're fully embracing the idea of, online and the cloud and digital content, and really, not shying away from it, and really just kind of going full barrel toward it, and I think that's a good thing.
Whoa! Can you repeat that? Like, wait, Nintendo understanding online?
I know, exactly. So I mean, that's promising, right? That they're even going to, the fact that they even know what the cloud is. I'm kidding, of course, but the fact that they're
right.
They're coming right out and saying, hey, we're going to leverage cloud-based data services tells me that they are, that they're not afraid of embracing, the online era anymore. And they've already kind of proven that with the Wii U to a degree, but there's always room for improvement, of course.
Everything I've heard about this new My Nintendo thing sounds really, really promising. But the thing that has me the most excited, and I really hope they do this, is being able to earn those points by playing the game. And I really hope that it's tied into like an achievement or a trophy type like system, like with the Xbox and the PlayStation has, because as that's proven, even not getting any tangible rewards, that has become incredibly addictive for people. They'll buy certain games just to get their gamer score up. At least back in the 360 days, they did that. I'm not sure if that's still very common, but if you can actually get tangible rewards for completing a certain number of tasks in a game or whatever, that'll just sell copies of just people like, well, I want to get more stuff, so I'll get up my gamer score, plus I'll get all this free stuff. It's sort of like those people that come with all those coupons where they go to a store and they buy all this extra crap because they'll save a little bit of money. So if they can tap into that, that'd be kind of brilliant. Plus, it's just, even on a more casual basis, I'm playing the game, having fun, earning some points that I can use towards other stuff. It's a really great idea, and I don't know if it's going to be integrated like that, but that's kind of my hope, because I think that's a really cool idea.
It is kind of funny, because when achievements first were announced, or shortly after they came out, I remember a lot of people saying, like, what's the point? Why can't I cash these points and you do something, practical with them? And yet I call it anyway. People loved achievements. I personally could not care less about achievements, but they did catch on. It is something I've seen a lot of people want from Nintendo. Whether or not, as you mentioned, that's how they tie it in here, who knows? But that would be interesting if, even if at the least, if there's no true achievement system, if you do unlock points for reaching like certain goals within the game, I do wonder how they would do that. Like, would it be based on playtime? Maybe, hey, you played an hour, here's 10 points, or you reached a certain point, or maybe they might tie into like, I don't know, expansions, or I guess that'd be basically a purchase. But yeah, I'm not quite sure how they handle that. Like, if they actually reward you for playing a game well. That is something I don't think has really been quite done before, at least not on a large scale. Although I do wonder if that might segregate certain people, like people who aren't as good as games. They might feel left out by not being able to earn those same rewards.
Well, what's interesting is that by the time this all happens and is established, there will be a precedent set for it, because Capcom's doing something very similar right now with Street Fighter V with fight money. When you play the game, you earn fight money, which can then, you slowly earn fight money, which you can then use to get DLC characters for free. Now, of course, if you want to buy them immediately with real money, you can. But by playing the game and achieving different things in it and leveling up individual characters and playing the game in general, you earn fight money, which you can then use to buy the DLC characters for free, essentially. So by the time this happens with Nintendo, Street Fighter V will be out, and there will be a precedent set to see how the two services kind of compare.
Just hearing you talk about that, it made me realize, like, this isn't really that new of a concept simply because there have been a ton of games where you earn in-game currency and you can use that to buy in-game stuff. But this just seems like a more global version of that, almost like the Street Pass or what the 3DS Street Pass coins or whatever.
Oh, the Play Coins thing.
The Play Coins, yeah, where you could use those in different games.
Right.
Actually, that seems to be almost exactly what this is. You can earn basically currency in a game, use it in other games.
The difference with Play Coins is that you don't earn them in a game. You earn them just by walking. But yeah,
right.
Or by shaking your 3DS. but yeah, I mean that's there. So yeah, it's not entirely unprecedented. It's just it'll be interesting to see how Nintendo implements all this, compared to previous implementations of it by themselves and other companies.
I thought the integration with like movies and other stuff too sounded interesting. Like I wonder what they'll even do there. Like, can you earn points by visiting the real life Nintendo land, or like if you go see a Nintendo movie, if they're actually working on those, maybe there's an app. Like they have that. What is it? Like the Fandango app or whatever. Like you turn on, or a Cinemark app, you turn it on during the movie and it rewards you for having your phone in silent mode the entire time.
Oh, I didn't know about that, but that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is. So maybe they could do something like that.
I know the one thing I'm hoping for more than anything is cross-buy, or something akin to it, so that we don't have to buy Super Mario Bros. 3 for full price on every console anymore. If I have it on my new handheld, I should get Mario 3 at least at a discounted rate, if not for free, on my new console, whatever that ends up being.
I mean, that would be awesome. And I do wonder if the cloud saves, as you brought up earlier, like if that ties into that.
Yeah.
Like, I wonder how deep that goes. But Nintendo did specifically mention being able to share like character data. But like, what if you can save like entire game save files there? So as you mentioned, if you have like Mario 3 or whatever, it'd be awesome if I could play it at home on my NX console, then go on the go and continue playing on my NX portable, right?
Well, that's exactly what you can already do between the PS4 and PS3 and Vita, so I would hope that's what they're doing, for sure.
Yeah,
there's already precedent there. Sony's already pulled it off. It works pretty well, so if Nintendo does the same thing, there's be no complaints. It's a wonderful little system to help you out with those cross buys and not having to buy the same game over and over again, which is a bit of a problem. Going back to the earning points through going to movies and theme parks and whatnot, that really does tie into Miyamoto saying that they really want to push their IPs. going forward with the NX. They really want to get those IPs out, get them recognizable, get them out there. So they really and they referenced the amiibos and how successful those have been. And this just all ties in, having this account and being tied into theme parks and movies and everything else. It really is like evidence of what they're trying to do and what ideas they have, and hopefully what the NX could do in order to just really help them out and really become that the Nintendo that everybody wants them to be. I think it'll help a lot.
It definitely does. Like, they have a ton of huge IPs, and I said before, it's surprising they've waited this long to really start capitalizing on them outside of video games. But it's almost like, hearing you describe that, Derek, it's almost like they're trying to do kind of like what Apple does. Like, everyone talks about Apple and Android like being tied up into their ecosystem. It almost sounds like Nintendo wants to do like that, but on a broader scale, like in real life.
Yeah.
Where you can, maybe you earn currency for Nintendo products by tying in all these things you can do outside of video games, like going to theme parks or going to movies. I mean, who knows if that's actually what they have planned. But it sounds like they do have something planned to tie in their account in some way. So, yeah, it's definitely intriguing. Like, it seems like a really good idea on Nintendo's part to try to do that, or something along those lines.
And they're definitely making it easy, like the fact that you don't need a Nintendo ID, so you don't have to even have a console. You could just have a Gmail account or a Facebook account and use that to get part of My Nintendo and get those kind of deals. Mm-hmm. That's pretty key as well. So we could still earn points somehow. Like, maybe, okay, it's like, I don't have a system. I'm not really into Nintendo, but I have this app and I'm going to go see one of their movies or go to the theme park. Why not?
Yeah.
And use it that way. It's a really good level of forethought in order to be able to attract as many people as possible as easily as possible.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm with you. Definitely be interesting to see what happens in the future here. All right, so there's only one final thing I really want to talk about here, and it's not even a big thing. Well, potentially it is, but I mean, the detail itself isn't. And that's the fact that Nintendo showed off in one of their slides a picture of like a bunch of their characters, again showcasing like all the IPs they have. And most of the characters use like the typical generic artwork we've seen of them before, like just artwork they designed for the original games. And among them is Link in his Twilight Princess pose. But there's something interesting about him, because he's actually a new model. It's actually not the artwork designed for the original game. It's actually a brand new model, and he's the only one that has this. So it's been making a lot of people wonder, is this showcasing a new model, or is it giving a look into how the art style might look for Twilight Princess HD, assuming that is a real thing, which it almost certainly seems like it is at this point, particularly given the fact that Nintendo's new president said there will be new game announcements coming before the end of the year. So I guess I have two things. One, do you think that is an indication of that? And two, more interestingly, do you think that actually might give us a glimpse into the new art style? And what do you think about that? Because it does look like the art style might be just brighter in general. I don't know. It looked a little bit happier than like the typical Twilight Princess artwork we've seen. So
it is the art style is radically different. It's weird. It's both radically different, yet it does feel like that is Twilight Princess Link. He has the look down, the same, the eyes. How he's I always come back to the eyes, just how that he has that determined look on his face. But everything else about him is brighter, and on one hand, that's good. That gives some color to Twilight Princess, but there is that just oppressive, dark feeling that Twilight Princess always has. So I'm wondering if they're not going to brighten it up too much, or if they'll be able to use the lighting and really play with that sort of light and darkness aspect of Twilight Princess and really maybe do something a little bit more interesting with it, at least from a visual standpoint. And at the very least, this is an impressive amount of detail for an HD remake for Twilight Princess. Way more than I ever expected, if this is, of course, true.
I think it is 100% an indication that Twilight Princess HD is real. I mean, the pose is exactly the same. It literally is the same pose. It has to be. What else could it possibly be? If they were just going to have an updated render of Link, why put him in the Twilight Princess pose? They could have just put him in any sort of pose. But it's Twilight Princess in HD. It has to be. And if it's not, then you can say I told you so, and I'm completely wrong, but it totally is. And yeah, I agree. For an HD remake, improvement we're seeing in this model is a lot more than I was expecting, and I'm actually okay with the brighter colors. To me, the original Twilight Princess never really sold that dark atmosphere well at all, which we talked about in our initial Twilight Princess HG discussion. So, given that, I never really felt Twilight Princess was dark anyway, and it just looked bland to me with the lack of color. So, if they're not going to use color, but the atmosphere doesn't feel dark anyway, then what's the point? So I say add some color. Don't make it super colorful like Wind Waker, because that has its own visual identity, and I want it to stay that way. But yeah, add some color. Make Twilight Princess look a little prettier, because a little more colorful, because it really didn't look that great the first time around. So I'm all for it.
Oh no, Ash, what are you doing to me, man? You're gonna make me defend Twilight Princess?
I guess I am. I mean, yeah, I have to say, now, if they had sold that dark atmosphere to begin with, then yeah, I would say I would defend that and defend the lack of color. But they didn't originally, in my opinion, so why not add a little color to it?
So, I mean, I don't necessarily disagree that they didn't sell the dark atmosphere, like, from a narrative standpoint. But from, like, a gameplay perspective, or, like, just an overall general or a visual perspective, like, I actually thought the game did look pretty distinct, and although it may not have looked great, I don't think that was necessarily due to the overall art style. I think that was more due to just limitations of the game and the Wii hardware, like the textures looking muddy and, so on and so forth. But I actually think the game actually does look pretty distinct. It actually looked quite good at points. And I actually would like to see something, I would actually like to see them, stick as close to that as possible when making the HD remake. Now, don't get me wrong, I wouldn't, if they have something better, great, go for it. I mean, they did I know a lot of people loved how Wind Waker looked originally and were skeptical when the first pictures came out of how the HD remake would look, and I know it is still a little bit divisive, but I personally loved how the HD remake looked. I thought they made some great changes to that.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah, and if they do something along those lines for Twilight Princess, I'm all for it. I just don't want them to brighten it up too much, because I think Skyward Sword might have almost gone too far in the other direction. And so I guess what I'm saying is I'd rather the HD version of this to look more like Twilight Princess than Skyward Sword.
Oh, I do too. Go ahead, Derek.
If they can strike a same sort of balance that Majora's Mask had, where there is bright and colorful aspects to Majora's Mask, but it also can to be a very dark and oppressive game. If they can find that kind of balance between like a more colorful, vibrant Link, and maybe the atmosphere around him is just dark and sort of grinding him down, and maybe the darkness encroaches on his outfit and model and everything else. There's a lot of really interesting visual things that they could do, especially with a model of this quality. If they're going this far with just his model, I am really excited to see what they would do for the rest of the game and how they would up that and change it and really make things just fit within that and still keep the Twilight Princess vibe the entire way through. There's a lot of potential here that I'm seeing.
That's a perfect example, Derek, actually. Majora's Mask 3D is a great example, because, adding a brighter color palette to a game, or at least a wider color palette to a game, doesn't mean it can't be dark. And Majora's Mask 3D is a perfect example of that, because the atmosphere is still dark. The atmosphere in the 3DS version wasn't ruined at all. But that version of the game is so much more colorful than I ever remember the N64 version being, and that's mainly due to hardware, limitations. But that's such a great example, because you can add a wider color palette and still maintain Twilight Princess's original atmosphere. And Majora's Mask 3D is perfect proof of that. So that's exactly the kind of direction I'd like to see them go in.
You know what's weird? Like everyone knows I did not like Twilight Princess at all. Yet I'm actually really excited for this.
I know, I am too, because it'll give me a chance to go through it again and see if I can like it more this time.
That's exactly it for me too. That's exactly how I feel, and I'm like, especially because I did a 180 basically on Wind Waker, which I did not like at all originally, and really ended up liking the HD remake. So they can, I said before, they can do that with Twilight Princess. Like, I will be amazed, and I'm actually really curious and eager to play this, assuming it's a real thing, which again, it really seems like it is.
Yeah.
So, plus, I really do think there is a lot of source material there in which they could actually make it look really good in HD. So at the least, I think it could be a great looking game, just maybe not necessarily a great playing one.
I think even just thinking about the title sequence alone, the improved, lighting effects from the Wii U could make the Twilight look amazing.
I think that is absolutely one of the most distinctive and striking parts of the original game was the Twilight in general. Like I remember like seeing the barrier to the Twilight realm in the background.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, that looks gorgeous. Like you can get up, and I think it had like the bloom lighting effect going on and everything. Or this in the Twilight realm. I think that could look fantastic.
Yeah, no, there's huge potential there. I mean, Twilight Princess to me didn't have that striking visual identity that you seem to have found with it, Andre. I do agree with the Twilight realm itself looking amazing and seeing it in the background.
To clarify, I don't think the entire game was that striking.
Yeah.
But I do think it was distinctive.
Yeah, see, I guess to me, the characters, Link included, just kind of looked like Ocarina of Time, but better. And just it kind of was that middle game that didn't really have the visual identity that Wind Waker and Skyward Sword had. It just was kind of the one that looked a little better than looked a lot better than Ocarina of Time, but kind of maintained that same art style to me. But either way, I think there's a huge amount of potential here for a really strikingly great-looking game.
Yep. Well, do you guys have any final thoughts about anything we talked about, or anything else you want to touch on real quick before we wrap it up here?
Yeah, I did want to mention one thing. That the new CEO, Nintendo CEO Kimishima, did mention during the investor meeting that, or actually I think it was Miyamoto, sorry, who mentioned that DNA specifically is handling they're handling like the service aspect of all the mobile games that they're making with Nintendo, while Nintendo is actually handling all of the development side stuff. So that tells me that these upcoming mobile games really are going to be very Nintendo-esque. DNA isn't handling any development stuff. They're only handling the service side of things, which I just found interesting.
You could have fooled me with a Miitomo.
Yeah, well, but even that, though, does seem like a very Nintendo-esque experience.
It does. I know. I'm
right.
joking. Yeah, it does seem like it's something only Nintendo could come up with, for better or worse.
Right. I mean, it seems like it's communication without real communication, which is pretty much Nintendo's whole MO with online.
Not really much else to say, but I do think the Amiibos have helped Nintendo open up their eyes to how much people love their IPs, because they showed the sales data and how over, I think, 50% of the sales were just from the United States.
It's just crazy.
And just a huge amount of sales from the United States, and that's with our having issues keeping the stocks up and everything else.
Well, to be fair, they have my friend Gadge to thank for those sales.
And me to a degree.
Yeah, I think we're all a bit guilty. I've bought far more than I ever expected to, and it's amazing how addictive they can be. But I think that showed them that their IPs are strong, and they've had this fear of giving out their IPs to other people in order to make new things for a while now, probably because of the getting burned back in the day with Super Mario Brothers and everything else. So it's nice to see them taking these risks again and really embracing the power that these IPs have, and I really can't wait to see what they do with them.
Yeah, I mean, well, they were kind of forced to, but it's good to see them taking advantage of that. Because, yeah, I mean, they do have some of the strongest IPs, and they were hesitant because they didn't want to damage them. Although, you could argue, or it could be argued, that by them not making active use of them, that in and of itself damaged them. Like F-Zero, if anyone remembers that series anymore. But yeah, I think it's an exciting time still. Like I mean, it's an uncertain time, but it's an exciting time as a Nintendo fan. Because there's still a lot of unknowns in the future. Like we still know very little about the NX. It's gonna be really fun to see how Nintendo continues to move forward and take advantage of broadening their use of IP. And of course, I still just really want to see the theme park. I just really want to see that Nintendo Land, right? Yeah.
Speaking of F-Zero, though, I did find it sad but telling that Captain Falcon was not in that slide with all the other characters.
But the Inklings were, so that was pretty.
That was cool, yeah. I mean, but that's not surprising given how much of a breakout success Splatoon has been.
Yeah.
True.
It is cool though to see like them brought into the official Nintendo family fold though. It's like, oh, they're part of the family now. And I guess they replaced Captain Falcon. Now Captain Falcon's is like the weird uncle now that no one wants to hang around with.
Yeah. Well, what does that make Ness then?
I have no idea. That's a good one.
Speaking of the amiibo, really quick, is what you were saying, Derek. The Wall Street Journal kept saying that Zelda was the best-selling amiibo in North America, but I think we can all agree that they just thought Zelda was Link. It has to be Link. There's no way Zelda is the best-selling amiibo anywhere.
Yeah, that has to be the case.
There's
right?
no way it's Zelda. It's got to be Link.
The data's always shown that Link was the highest selling one, no matter
unless people just bought it off name alone. It's like, oh, here's Zelda.
I don't think there's that many people that do that.
Yeah, it's got to be Link.
So, if they're targeting non-gamers now, maybe.
Rookie mistake, Wall Street Journal. Rookie mistake.
Alright, I think that about wraps up for us here, so thanks guys for watching. If you liked our discussion, make sure to like and follow us on Facebook and Twitter at GameXplain. You can find links to them in the description below to go away, keep up to date on everything we post. And of course, keep an eye on GameXplain for tons more on Nintendo in general, and hopefully Twilight Princess HD at some point in the very near future. We do know Nintendo Directs are coming up before the end of the year, so we should be finding out about those at least soon. And yeah, thanks for watching, and bye. I forgot how to end it, so I'll end it that way.